Hi, Mariano Gomez, the Dynamics GP Blogster here. Today I want to show you how to leverage the AI Builder form processing model with Microsoft Flow. In previous episodes, I showed how to actually leverage form processing with Power Apps. This time I actually want to bring a practical example of leveraging the AI Builder model that I created for the utility garbage processing in Microsoft Flow. So let's see what this entails. Okay, here I have the utility garbage model that I previously created, built and trained with 5 actual utility bills that I've collected over the past few months. This is built specifically for my garbage utility. This model already has been trained with 5 documents and has been already published. So this is a live model. To get started with Flow and having Flow leverage that utility garbage model that I created, it is necessary to build your flow within a solution. That's a requirement because it leverages CDS. The AI model is actually built on top of CDS. Right here, we're gonna set up a new solution, and that solution, I'm just gonna call it Utility Form Processing. We're gonna select the CDS default publisher, and we're gonna set the version to 1.0. I'm gonna click on Create. Next, we're gonna open the solution. That's where we should create our flow. So we're just gonna go ahead and click on Utility Form Processing, which is our new solution. And we're gonna go to New and select Flow. Once we get the design surface, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a manual trigger. So we're just gonna look for the word manually and select the trigger action. And we're just gonna go ahead and add a file entry because that's what we want to do. We want to select a file and use that as the input for our form processing. Let's go ahead then and highlight this and replace it for file. And we're going to click to add a new step. You're just going to type predict, and that's going to filter out the common data service prediction object. That's going to actually run our form processor. We're going to go ahead and immediately rename that. And I'm going to change that to a process form. And then I'm going to point that to my model. And as you can see here, my utility garbage model shows up. That's the model that I previously published for this object. For the request payload, we need to specify the encoding, the type of encoding, and the meme type. And for that, I'm going to use a simple JSON template that I can paste in this particular field. And you can see here we have the expression. Now we need to actually change that expression tag that I have there, and for that we're gonna use a simple conversion of the trigger body of the file and the and content bytes that are a result of the actual initial manual trigger. I have the meme type, and we will deal with the meme type once you know, we get further on in this demonstration. So we're gonna leave that for now. What I want to do now is I want to test this model, and basically I'm gonna trigger the action myself from inside of Flow. The objective of this is to actually get the payload result. Here I'm going to select the build image that I want to process. So here's my normal utility bill here from the city of Roswell. And I'm just selecting that. I'm going to click open here. And then I'm going to hit run flow. So this is just going to allow me to test out my flow and get the actual JSON payload as a result of the form processor. So you can see here this is complete. If I expand my outputs, you will see that now I get the actually response ID back. I'm just going to highlight that, copy it, And I'm gonna open Visual Studio Code, which I already have here. I'm just paste it here. I'm just gonna do a quick replacement of the backslash for a blank value. So I basically want to get rid of the backslash from the file, and then I'm gonna format the selection. So formatting the selection will allow me to look at the JSON payload a little better. So here we are. All I'm just gonna do now is scroll up and show you some of the things that we notice here. We can see the account number field and the value that was selected from that. Here's the statement date, the value from that as well. Just gonna copy this quickly, and I'm gonna return to Flow. In Flow now, I'm gonna actually add a new step, and that step basically is a step to parse out the JSON value that I retrieved from the form processor. So I'm just gonna select the content here. It's gonna be the response payload from the previous action, and then we're gonna use the value that we got from that JSON payload, paste it here as a sample payload for us to continue working on. Now we're gonna click close here. Just look at the payload quickly. Just hit done. And then now you can see that Flow has actually converted that into an actual Flow value. Now I'm going to go back to Visual Studio Code here, open a new file, paste that result set here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the integer or replace all the integer values for number. That ensures that if we get a decimal place in any one of these positions, that we can capture that value. That's all this is doing. So as you can see here, I just type in integer number and do a quick replace all. Then I'm gonna grab this JSON once more, and I'm gonna just go and paste it directly in the schema. So just highlight here quick. Oops, let's do that again. Let's just highlight this again and paste it again. So there we go. This is the actual parsed out JSON value in the schema we want to use for that. And now we can quickly go ahead and rename this action. And I'm going to call this parse form response. Perfect. Now we're going to add a new step. And what we want to do from here now is we want to extract the values that were returned or that are going to be returned by a form processor. So we basically want to get the discrete values that are being returned from analyzing that form. So I'm just going to add a variable quick here, and that variable action is just going to allow me to set up a name for that variable. In this case, we're going to do statement date, and we're going to set the type to string. And finally, the value, since they're actually all value entries in the dynamic content, they're actually ordered in the same order that the JSON is laid out. So that's the only one caveat here. You gotta know exactly what you're doing. So I'm gonna add another variable for the, in this case, we're gonna select initialize variable first. Then here I'm gonna type in let's see, I'm gonna type in account number. So that's gonna be my account number field that I'm gonna retrieve from the payload. So I'm gonna set that to string again. And remember here you can do all sort of conversion formulas to make sure you're converting things to number, etc., stripping down any values that you don't want. So that's gonna be the second value in my payload, and I'm gonna repeat this for the amount due again. So I'm gonna set a variable action, and here I'm gonna initialize this variable as amount due. So we type that in. There we go. We set the value to string, and then finally the value is gonna be the third entry in the list of value containers that are a part of the dynamic content. So there we go, that's the third one. Choose that. And finally, one more step to get the uh, due date. So I'm gonna just again look for variable and scroll down, and I'm gonna choose the initialize variable once more. And in this case, I'm gonna call this due date. Okay, and set the type to string once more, and select the fourth entry in the dynamic content list for values. There we go. So that completes my initial setup. Now let's just rename these so we know exactly what we're doing. Just gonna fix this here for a bit. I like my variables to be named, conventionally. I'm a developer by heart, so I like to set conventions for those. So we're gonna call this get statement date. This other step here, we're gonna call it get account number. For this other one here, we're gonna call this get due, get amount due, and finally we're gonna set this one to get due date. There we go. All set. So let's go ahead and test this. So we can quickly test that. And we can use one of the results that succeeded previously. So I'm just going to hit that, save and test. Okay, perfect. And now we can see our flow executing in test mode. So what we want to look here is if we actually got the correct values for get statement date. So as you can see here, this one is set to 06/30/2019. The account number, that's actually the value that that is the second value in the list. So there we go, that's my account number. And here's my get amount due. And that basically is the $27.95 that I gotta pay for my utility. And finally the due date, and it's due on the 22nd of July. So actually it's past due. I already paid my bill. No, let's not worry about that. All right, so now that we're back here, we can worry about, if you remember before, I had the meme type, and the meme type is currently set to JPEG, image JPEG. As we know, the process form can also use a PDF file, so I'm just going to add an action here to determine what sort of file we're getting, and we're going to process. So I'm just going to call this get file extension. So we want to make sure that we retrieve the correct extension and set the correct meme type for it. So we're going to call this file extension. It's going to be a string value. And there is a formula that I use for that. We're going to actually set up an expression for this. And basically what we want to do is we want to split out the body file name from the manual trigger flow. And I just want to get the last entry in that list, in the split list. So anything past that, the last period, that should be our file extension. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK here. Okay. All right. Then we're going to add a new step that will allow me to basically get the initialize the meme type variable. So I'm just going to click on add action. So we're going to add an action here. Perfect. And we're going to look for variables once more. So it's kind of cool that we can leverage the variables action to do a lot of the stuff that would probably require us to to cache things in memory. So that's pretty good. So I'm going to type variables, and then I'm going to initialize a variable. We're going to call this one meme type. I don't know how you really pronounce that well, so we're going to go with meme type for now. And then we're going to call this initialize meme type. Some people say meme type. I assume meme type is the right way of doing it. We're going to set that to string. And initially we don't need a value for that. So I'm just going to go ahead then and insert one more action. and that action is going to be a condition. So we actually want to make sure we select control and select condition. And as you can see here, I get the ability to select a yes or no branch based on the value that I'm evaluating. In this case, we want to evaluate the file extension to determine what meme type we should set. So let's click here. And then we're going to select the file extension, meme type, not meme type, but file extension. Let's do this again. There we go, file extension. And once I select the file extension, I can determine if it's equal to to JPEG. And if it's equal to JPEG, then we will actually go through the yes branch. And in the yes branch, we're going to add an action. That action is going to then set the meme type variable. So let's just do and locate variables once more. And once we identify that, now we're going to set the variable itself. And that variable is going to be my meme type. And we're going to set the value to image JPEG. Perfect. Just rename this action quickly so we can set this to set meme type JPEG. Perfect. Let's move on to the no branch. So if we choose a variable, in this case, if the file extension happens to be a PDF, we're going to set the meme type variable to application PDF. There we go, application PDF, and we're done. All right, so that's all we need for now for these two branches. So we're going to go back to the process form action once we rename this. So we'll set this to set meme type PDF. And now we're going to go now to the process form action and make sure we set up the meme type with the correct variable instead of hard coding it just to a JPEG. Okay, today I can't get things selected, so let's try this again. Oops, there we go, back out. And then replace that for meme type from our dynamic content list. Perfect. Once more, we're gonna test this out. And we're gonna save and test. That should actually take our previous successful test and run it through again. So now we can see our flow running. Perfect, it met the condition. Then currently it's processing the form. Let's expand the condition for now, and we can see that it went through the yes side, because in the yes side we use a JPEG value, so we can see that all these actions are properly initialized and are following the branch logic that we designed for it. In this case, the image JPEG is the meme type that was used, and that is cool. That's exactly what we were looking for. Let's edit once more. And we're gonna test this once more, and this time we're gonna select a PDF document. So we're gonna click Save and Test. In this case, we wanna just perform the action manually, so we can choose the file. So we'll click here and then click on Import. And now I'm gonna just go and pick up one of those documents that I have. Select that and click on Run Flow. Now we can see our flow running in test mode, and right now we'll evaluate the condition once more, and we can see that this time it went through the no, so it set the meme type to PDF, application PDF, which is exactly what we're looking for, and that was passed into our process form as an input, and we basically got back the full parsed out JSON, which the full JSON value, which we then need to parse out in the next action, which is parse from response. So that's pretty cool. This basically concludes my demonstration. I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you next time. Go back and check my video on form processing with Power Apps. You can find more details there. Thank you very much.